But yeah.
That's amazing. You came and you've taken so much adversity and so much, blows, literal, maybe not literal, but um, even worse, blows to your setbacks to your career. You starting out and this and that, and you again, like I said earlier, it's like you just picked right back up and you kept going. You didn't get discouraged. You didn't get, you didn't wallow. You didn't take the easy way out of saying, oh, my daddy's in the bank, he can get me a job, he has connections, you stuck to what you wanted to do, that dogged, digging, not even being digging your heels in, but focused on
Yeah.
on what you had set out to do, as opposed to taking what would be the easy way out, the cop out, that's that sort of thing. And it's amazing to see how it's brought, where you've been able to take that, um, that's great. How were you able to transition back here, or like,
Okay.
why don't you, can you talk about that story coming back to America, and after, or establishing yourself in Nigeria as this person? Yeah.
Yeah. So in 20, I want to say 2013, 2014, a couple of things happened. One was I was overworked and just exhausted. And my disease reared its ugly head again. I started having more crises on tours. And the more I was trying to cover up that my body couldn't handle the stress I was putting it through, the more I kept trying to treat myself at home. I was playing bedroom doctor instead of going to get professional help and seeing a hematologist and getting myself checked and everything like that. I was just kind of like, all right, I'm just going to take my pain meds and do what I need to do and sleep and rest. I'm not going to do any blood tests and stuff like that. And I think my body couldn't keep up, and my family could see that my body couldn't keep up. So my mom was like, well, you need to start thinking of how to transition out of entertainment. Either you represent these clients, but you send your staff to be on tour with them, where you're not the one physically undertaking this, or one day you're just going to collapse from exhaustion. So I took some time and kind of did a pivot or redirect from my career. And I said, all of my clients have gotten to a point now where I can let them fly. They know how best to handle situations, even where I'm not there, even when I'm not there physically, because when you have a roster of really successful clients, you can't give everybody the same amount of shine and hands-on publicity. I had to learn how to better delegate. I had to learn how to grow my staff. So while I was doing that, a client of mine who is still, she's now the host of The Voice Africa. She's also done Nigeria's Got Talent. Stephanie Coker at the time came to me with this idea, and she said, I want to do a web series. I want the web series to focus on how, when you've lived abroad or you've gone to school abroad, whether it be the UK or the US, how you're kind of coming back to Nigeria and kind of figuring out, kind of trying to assimilate to what you see here. Because when you look at Nigeria, you look at Ghana, they look beautiful to want to live in. But living there is a different, it's almost like a savage. You have to act like you're mad. The way they're mad, you have to act like that. If not, people will walk all over you. And so she came to me and she said, let's do a web series where every episode we kind of recount our experiences from, trying to negotiate, because they can always hear an accent when you come. They know this one is like, I just came back from a foreign location. So they try to cheat you or take advantage of you. So she's like, let's do a web series on that. And I was like, I love the idea. At the time, a lot of people were trying to relocate and move back home. A lot of people were trying to come back to the continent and, thrive and find their way back. And so I was like, okay, this is a brilliant idea. I was like, but for the visual I see in terms of production and because she wanted me to be executive director on the project, I was like, for what we're trying to achieve and where we want to take this, we need funding. This isn't something that you and I can put our heads together, because she set up her own production company. And I said, for what you and I have in mind, this isn't something that we can afford to fund ourselves the way we want to see it done. So I literally reached out to my mentor at the time, who was the very first chairwoman of First Bank Nigeria. And I said, sorry, Auntie, can I come and see you? I want to do this web series, this show. And she's like, all right, well, write me a one page or give me a brief, send me your budget, and I will discuss it with the team. And she was able to get it sponsored. So we got this bank to come on board to do a web series. So we had agreed to do a season, a 10-episode kind of pilot season. And I was like, all right, before I start shooting for this web series, let me take a vacation. Right? I was reluctant to do it because I'm one of those people that, like, I'm a workaholic, but I preface by giving the disclaimer that I work hard because I love what I do. So it doesn't feel like work. I think there's a popular, like, Steve Jobs quote that, like, if you do something you love, it never feels like work to you. And that's exactly how I am with, like, PR. So I was like, my mom was like, like, we're going to, Seattle. Then my brother was at Amazon, and my mom was like, like, it would just be a bit like off-putting if we just leave you in Nigeria by yourself, like, just come with us. It's a 3-week vacation. We'll be back in time before you guys start shooting everything. And I was like, oh, okay, well, all right, fine, I guess. And I came. And I remember on the flight because we went Lagos, Amsterdam, Seattle. And from Amsterdam to Seattle, I had a crisis. So the entire plane, everybody was like, sleeping and stuff like that. I was in the back with the air hostess with an oxygen mask in excruciating pain, like, all they had were like hot water towels, using whatever Tylenol and stuff I had in my purse to manage the crises. As soon as I got to Seattle, you go through immigration and everything like that. And then I got taken to the ER.
Wow.
From being taken to the ER, the crisis was so bad, my blood work was so bad, they immediately admitted me. All right. For me, my really bad crisis lasts an average of like 7 days to 10 days. So at the time, after a week, I was like, I came here for a vacation. Why am I sick? Like, what is happening? But what I knew that was different for that crisis that I had was, if you had looked at me, I looked like a chronically ill sickle cell patient who was 3 months pregnant. My abdomen was really distended. Then I had lost a significant amount of weight, and my eyes were severely jaundiced. They were yellow, not like kind of yellow, really jaundiced.
Yeah.
I remember then I was just like in excruciating pain, and when I was on my pain,
PCA.
No, even I was like pushing my PCA, it just didn't seem like anything was helping. And so my team at the time were like, something's off. Your numbers aren't getting better. We've done 2 exchange transfusions. You're still sickling at an incredibly fast rate. Your belly is distended. Your liver numbers are through the roof. At the time, I remember my urine for a period of time was the color of like Coke, like a bottle of Coke. It was dark.
You said your urine at the time was
it was like
dark as Coke.
Really dark as Coke, right? Coca-Cola, by the way, so people don't think we mean the other type of Coke. But
no.
So the doctor was
that
like,
one is pure white. That's for those that don't know the difference. I'm a pharmacist, by the way. So anyway.
So my team at the time had said they didn't know what was going on with me. So they reached out to staff at Mass Gen in Boston. And basically they reached out to the sickle cell department there because they're really renowned in the US. And they said, all right, this is what we think could be wrong with this patient, but go ahead and send her test to Arizona, because that was the only advanced lab that they had at the time that could run the kind of tests we needed to get done. And then it came back that I had Mycobacterium avium complex, which is like a when people hear MAC, they immediately think of like HIV patients, because it's one of those like near death infections you have when you're like terminally ill. And usually it takes you out within like 3 to 6 months. So for me, the team came and they were like, we have
it's an infection, sorry to interject, that when you're learning about this in school, it's part of the kind of HIV chapter, because it's one of the diseases like PCP, pneumocystic carni pneumonia, that a person with a decreased immune system, such as an HIV patient, maybe a cancer patient, are more prone are more susceptible to these types of diseases, because your body just, isn't able to fight these types of things. And so we usually learn about it in association with immunosuppressed or compromised patients. Yeah.
So when, they told me that, they kind of broke the news to me, and my doctor was like, I don't really know what this is. I've never heard of it. I've never treated a patient with it in my life. But what I will tell you is like, we can't guarantee that you will get out of it. Like, we can only try our best. We're going to try with 5 different antibiotics. We're going to hope for the best, we hope you make it. But, this is one of those times that, like, if you didn't have like an end of life, like a will, or you wanted to to make those kind of preparations now.
Hold on. How old are you at this point?
I was 28.
Jeez, you're 28 and you're being told that you should make a will. You may not make it out of this hospital or whatever. You may not, this condition might. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So literally, it was a vacation turned nightmare. And for me, it was even far complicated because I had made commitments to clients. I had taken money from the bank. There were so many things I had put in place. I had staff that I was on payroll. And then all of a sudden, somebody is telling you your life might end within a span of 3 to 6 months. And you're having to put your tail between your legs and apologize to clients and say, I know I had promised. When I tell you that, like, not only was my pride and ego defeated, but like I as a woman was so broken, because it was just like, how did we get here? Why are we here? What, like, where what was my misstep that got me to this point? But I thank God that I'm one of those people that not only am I resilient, but I have clients who I haven't just seen them as just work and just ended the relationship like that. I've become friends with. So and I was always, when you're on tour with people, you see them when they're on stage and when they're off stage. You see them in the morning when you guys are going for radio and TV interviews. You see a lot of their life. So they all gotten to understand and know, because I've never been public about my sickle cell diagnosis. I wasn't public till I turned 27. That was when I was just kind of like, you know what, I'm tired of hiding in shame and pretending like I don't have sickle cell disease because I'm afraid person A is going to judge me or look at me like I'm a piece of egg that's going to crack at any point, So because they all knew my struggle with sickle cell disease, when I told them why I had to be in the US, I think for a lot of them, they were just kind of like, I just need you to be alive. Like, I heard that you are disappointed that like you feel like you let me down, but I need you to be alive, because I know what you have. I know who you've been and how you've been instrumental in my career. I need you to be okay. So for me, those kind of reassurances was what didn't completely fracture my professional life. But on a personal level, it was very rough, because I know coming back to the US in this way was not my plan. For 2, I came back on a travel visa. You know what I mean? I didn't come here with the intent to stay. I came here to vacation and go back to Lagos and continue to thrive. So when I came here and everything seemed like it was spiraling out of control, it was just at a point where I had to surrender, because nothing was necessarily the way I had planned it out. What's that statement that like,
you make plans and God laughs.
Or something, yeah. So that was literally what was happening. I was just, and I'm someone that, like, this is a little bit morbid to admit to. I've always had a very morbid sense of humor. It's my way. I've always coped. It's always been my coping mechanism. So when people are like, oh my God, I'm so afraid of death, or like, oh my God, I can't wait till I'm 70, I'm like, where the hell would you want that? Like, life is hard. Adulting is harder. You know what I mean? Like, you're trying to pay bills, you're trying to thrive, you're trying to compete. Like, it's just like being an adult is the biggest scam in the history of scams. Because you grow up as a kid looking at all the adults and saying, oh God, I can't wait to drive my own car. I can't wait to come in whenever I want to come in. I can't wait to spend my money the way I want to spend it. And then you become an adult and then you realize it's all smokes and mirrors. That's not necessarily the reality, because some of us don't just struggle with health issues. Some people struggle with like mental health stuff, like a divorce. Like people are really going through life stuff.
Yeah.
So all of those things happened then. And I think for like that touch and go for 6 months, I got to a place where I started saying my goodbyes, especially to the people that meant the most to me. I was like, hey, I don't want to tell you this. Please don't do, like you're not going to help me by crying. You know what I mean? Like, this is where we are. I reached out to a couple of people from college that like I was still in close contact with, and said my own due diligence and did my own goodbyes. And I remember in the hospital, I was so sick one day and I was in so much pain that I literally closed my eyes and I said, Lord and Heavenly Father, my soul, my body, my mind is exhausted. I am drained. I don't have an inch of fight left in me. If you want me to be on this earth, I'm going to need you to meet me halfway, because this cross you've given me to carry is heavy. I was like, I am exhausted. I can't even take half a step forward because I'm just so tired. And I said to myself, Father God, if I don't get a cure before I'm 30, I don't want to see past my 30th birthday. Wow. I literally said that. And I meant it in every sense of the word. Because yes, sickle cell is a chronic illness and a lot of people are diagnosed with it or carriers of the trait. But I am a walking, talking, living, breathing proof of when sickle cell just chooses not to cooperate with you. It has been a hindrance in every facet of my life, professionally, personally, socially. Every single thing has roped. I somehow I found that I've had to rope in my illness into things that like I would rather not even correlate the two. So I said that, and I just kind of, in my heart, I knew that. I didn't articulate that to like my close friends or my family because it would have been heartbreaking to admit to them. But internally, I had gotten to a place of comfort where that was my covenant with God. Do not keep me alive past my 30th birthday if you're not going to meet me halfway and help me find a way to deal with this illness where it doesn't dictate my entire life. I found out my brother was a match for my transplant. My birthday is September 9th. I found out September 1st. Wow. I found out 8 days to my 30th birthday that my brother was a 97% match. So it's just a way of, I say that because like we're going to get into that, but I'm just letting you know how our mouth and our words are very powerful. And one thing I'm comfortable in saying now is I've grown up for my whole life being a pessimist. I might sound like now I'm a victor, but for a lot of my life, I've been the victim. Where when someone tells me something is going to be good, I don't like disappointment. So I'm going to be like, this thing is going to be shit. So that way, if it's great, then we're good. If it's shit, then, the rug wasn't pulled from under me. You know what I mean?
You're not disappointed.
I'm not disappointed. And when you're a pessimist and then you're like me again, you're super cynical as well and sarcastic, you're not the energy a lot of people like to be around. Because for the most part, like when the things that like make people like light up, you're just basically like, womp womp, I could really care less. I really could care less. But yeah, that's kind of how I came back to the US. It started as a nightmare, but The MAC infection that I did have, it took us 24 months to clear it completely. 5 different antibiotics for 2 years straight. And even when we were able to clear it, a couple of unfortunate things that happened is because I already had sickle cell anemia and asthma as an underlying condition, the MAC exacerbated a lot of my other symptoms. So I had a mini stroke, my avascular necrosis in my hip got worse. I had acute chest syndrome more frequently. I had issues with my breathing. Like it just exacerbated everything. However,
Had a mini stroke.
yes. So I've had with sickle cell, I've had 2 mini strokes. Yeah. It was literally just timing and God, where I was like, something is off. I can't feel my entire left side of my face and my hand is numb. Let's go to the ER because let's go to the ER type of thing. Wow. It was a full-blown stroke.
Yeah.
We hadn't gotten to the hospital when we did. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. That is so as you know personally, I don't put it out there as I haven't shared it much, but I also have sickle cell, and I mean, you're born with it. And so luckily I haven't, it's not as severe with me as it is with most people that have this condition. Like I've shared with you in the past, it's, everything still happens, right? Eyesight. I've been wearing glasses since I was 10 or so. Your, what do you call it? The tiredness, feeling weak, being diagnosed with, whatever asthma, COPD-like symptoms or whatever, all of that still. I just don't get the pain crises as often, or as severe when I do get them, as severe to where I need to be admitted into a hospital. So thankfully, that's kind of been how it's presented for me, and we've talked about this as well as some of the reason why I have some fetal hemoglobin that's protective, or whatnot. And so I definitely have not experienced a lot of what you have or some other patients have experienced. And so I am familiar. I'm not familiar to the extent, right? Personally, rather. And so when you're saying all of this stuff, it's like, wow, and even when we were speaking of it earlier, to have gone through a lot of this stuff, and you were telling me about the necrosis. I didn't even know that was a thing, right? I didn't even know that was one of the symptoms or one of how it can progress, and things like that. But to know and to hear someone talking about that, my gosh, that I just wanted to interject there and throw that in there, because as familiar as I am, I'm still, it's still a lot for me to hear that, wow, you had too many strokes by the time you were like 28 or so, or 20, whatever, before 30. That's crazy. That is absolutely crazy. So I can imagine other people hearing this who may not be as familiar with the condition, how crazy that may sound to some people. But no, so you had this, you cleared up the MAC after 24 months, you said. You were, and it's exacerbating these other symptoms, like to a crazy degree. Like wow.
I would say in a month, there are 4 weeks in a month. On average, I was spending between 2 to 3 weeks every month in hospital, like to the extent where like it didn't even it didn't even make sense for me to be home because I was always there, you know.
Wow.
So for a very long time, when people would be like, oh my God, you live in Seattle, what's Seattle like? I didn't have it in my heart to tell them I don't know, because my only experience of the city has been inpatient. You know what I mean? For a lot of
Wow.
my life, my friends were nurses. You know what I mean? Like, besides my family, and when you're dealing with health issues, it isn't something you shout from the rooftop. What is the when you go on your Facebook page, what do you edit your profile to say? Like, what's on your mind? Oh, you know, I might die soon, but I'm just in Seattle, sleepless. Like what do you say to that? You know, you kind of keep those things like personal. You kind of hope
Yeah.
people don't remember that you've just kind of gone dark, you know, like your
Right.
online footprint barely exists, and things like that. But for me, to cope, I needed to still practice PR. I think when things in your life aren't going well, it's like when you know a lot of people, like when they're grieving, they have to still go to work because work gives them a reason to want to get up and shower and get out the door, as
Yeah.
opposed to sitting in that funk and just like getting into a point of
Feeling
depression where you can't even dig your way out, you know. So even during all of that,
it's
instead of sitting and just saying, woe is me, this is so bad, what I did was I just said, all right, I've done PR in entertainment, I've done PR for consumer brands, I've done PR in fashion. I was like, well, then if I'm gonna die, I want to go out knowing I left, I caused some kind of ripple. You know, I came, I saw, I conquered. I
go
said,
out with a bang.
it go out in a bang, but I think for me, it's always been, I,
Metaphorical bang.
yes, and I tailored my life around social impact.
Right.
There's nothing I do that I do. If you're friends with me, everybody that is friends with me will tell you this. I never miss a birthday. Like, there's no birthday that any of my friends have had that I've missed and I haven't sent a card ahead of time. Everyone's Christmas cards went out like the last week in November. I will never not send them, because for me, birthdays are huge. Because when you grow up not thinking you might make your next one, when people are like, I mean, I just turned 31, like it's not that big of a deal. I'm like, are you crazy? Do you know how happy I am to have you in my life? You are a blessing, you know, because like I take those kind of things seriously, because I'm like, for me, nothing has been guaranteed. So I have to leverage what little moments I have. So during those periods, instead of doing PR for in those spaces, I decided to reach out to a lot of like nonprofits in the sickle cell world and lend my talents in that regard. You know what I mean? Work with Jordan Sparks so that she, you know, like she's like a brand ambassador for sickle
Yeah.
cell a pharmaceutical company because her younger sister died from a sickle cell crisis. You know, work with like Bolus or sickle cell, who at the time they were working with T-Boss from the, you know, legendary female group TLC, you know, because
Yeah.
she had sickle cell and she's never shied away from articulating that she had sickle cell. You know, at the time, Mob Deep, their
Yeah.
member died from sickle cell, and that was kind of how I created this hashtag sickle cell prodigy that now on social media has garnered over like 1,000 posts, and people all over the world are saying, thank you for saying that we're sickle cell prodigies. I would rather people call me that than say I'm a sickler. You know what I mean? Or make me feel less than, because we are prodigies. We are battling something that every single step of our lives, they've counted us out and they said, well, we're not going to make it to. So why can't we take this and reintroduce ourselves that this is who we are? So that's kind of how my advocacy started in the sickle cell space. And it's where, and that's why I always say, like, my life is very weirdly structured. I wanted to get a transplant in college. At the time, I had two things counting against me. One, I wasn't sick enough. And two, I was an international student, so I didn't qualify. So when I got really sick and my MAC exacerbated it, I said to myself, well, then this is perfect, because now they can't say I'm not sick enough. I spend more time in the hospital than I spend outside the hospital. So let me try again. And when I started advocating for Bold Lives for Sickle Cell, which is now they've rebranded to Bold Plus, the NIH, the Genome Research Institute, reached out to the organization saying, we have this study that we're doing on leg ulcers. And I've never had leg ulcers, but a lot of younger sickle cell patients are experiencing leg ulcers where they'll have swelling, and then it almost starts to feel like your body's rotting from the inside out, but it's specifically focused on their legs. So they said they were doing this leg ulcer study, and that because we were an advocacy, like a nonprofit, we should help them contact patients that like they'll fly you into the NIH, they'll pay for you, like pay for hotel, like basically it was a free trip, and they would even like pay you money to participate in it. So I was like, well, I don't have a leg ulcer and I'm in it, like I came here on a travel visa, would I still be able to participate? And they were like, yeah, come. And guess what I said to myself? I've been trying to get into the NIH for a decade and I couldn't quite get in. Once I get in for this research study, guarantee I will find my way so that they can let me, they would consider me for a transplant. So this is why I always say, like, I'm like a rat. I wouldn't get in through the normal door. I didn't get in the normal way most patients would, where their doctors would advocate on their behalf and say, look at this patient that's really sick, please help her. I went for a research study. And I remember the director of the Genome Research Institute, we were having coffee, and I looked at the guy and I said, I know you don't know me, but I've like looked you out online and everything like that. And I'm so glad you let me participate in this research study, even though I don't have leg ulcers. I need a transplant and I want a transplant. I don't know how I'm gonna get it, but I need one. And he's like, well, who have you spoken to? And I was like, I spoke to this person. They said I didn't classify, I didn't get in then, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, all right, I'll get you a meeting. He's like, I'll get you a meeting with their research nurse. Do you have any siblings? I was like, yes, I have my mom and dad, and then I only have the one sibling. And he's like, well, that's a shot in the dark, because you know, if you had like 3 or 4 siblings, there'll be different people they can type. But he's like, well, but then if you really want to do this, then I'll set up a meeting for you. He set up that meeting for me. The day I was supposed to fly out, I went to the National Heart, Lung, and Blood Institute, which is where they do all the research, curative therapies for blood diseases. And I met with the nurse and I said, I need to get a transplant. This is my situation. And she's like, well, you have 3 options. You can either do bone marrow, stem cell, or gene editing. And I was like, okay, give me a little bit of a breakdown of each of them. She did that. I said, what do you need from me? She's like, okay, usually we're not allowed to do this, but because of how I can see you're desperate for this, take this bag. If you can get your brother to give you a vial of blood, then we can test that. Fisayo, I went to the hospital. They said they couldn't do it for me because my brother isn't when I say every roadblock that we could possibly encounter, to the extent, I think I ended up getting his blood from like a roadside clinic, because I was just kind of like, someone draw the blood. I don't care who does it. Just get the blood and put it in, and sent that in. And that was kind of how I got in for the program.
Wow.
So my transplant, when people are like, how did you do it? How did you get it? I'm like, the way my life has worked out, every bad thing that I've had to power through, there's been a silver lining. It was just a matter of, was I going to see it or was I going to ignore it? And for me, I was like, I'm getting to this NIH. Oh, you're gonna have to yank me out of here kicking and screaming before I leave. So that was how. And then we sent the blood in. And as I said to you, they called me. I remember that morning I got the call at like 6:30 a.m. And it was a voice note. And they were just kind of like, your brother is a 97% match.
Wow.
They were like, in our history of doing transplants, we have never seen the percentage that high. And did your parents tell you you're also the exact same blood group? I've gone through my whole life not knowing that the cure, my miracle, was my older sibling who had lived with me and seen me through all of my pain crises, all of my surgeries. Didn't know that was like literally my cure was standing right beside me and I had no idea.
Wow.
You know,
that's crazy.